BlacKkKlansman is directed by Spike Lee and follows the true story of Ron Stallworth, a black police officer in the 70s who successfully managed to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan. I'm going to be honest, my history with Spike Lee movies is very brief. I've seen Do the Right Thing, and that is it. I realise he's made some pretty good movies in the past, like Malcolm X, but I am also aware that his more recent movies, like the remake of Old Boy, and a lot of his more commercial movies, aren't that great. He's just making movies for the sake of making movies, and the passion that was at the start of his career isn't necessarily there. Except with BlacKkKlansman, because seeing that the only movie of his that I've seen was right from the start of his career, and it showed a lot of flair and promise in his directing, I've pretty much seen the exact same thing in BlacKkKlansman, so I don't know what the fuck he's been doing for the last 20 or so years making movies, but I still see that same flair and unique presence as a director in both BlacKkKlansman and in Do the Right Thing. It's more prominent in Do the Right Thing, but there are still bits of it here, enough to make me think that he's still got it. Now, easily my favourite aspect of this movie is the fact that Spike Lee has managed to take this controversial story and make it almost entertaining. There's quite a bit of humour scattered throughout the movie, not enough to class it as a comedy per se, but enough to make the characters in this story feel very real. There were times where I was laughing quite a lot, but there were also times where I was just shocked and appalled by the stuff that was happening in the movie, mainly because this story is real, and the fact that this is based off of a true story just made me keep thinking, how the fuck does stuff like this actually happen? And what makes that whole aspect of the movie even worse in a sense is the fact that you are thinking, how could this have happened in the past? But then the ending comes along and it's a montage of recent events that are pretty much mirroring what happens in the movie and what happened back in the 70s. And the fact that these kind of things are happening still today is just kind of appalling, and the fact that Spike Lee chooses to end the movie on that kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth, but in probably the best way possible. I really liked all the performances in this movie. I especially liked John David Jr. as Ron Stallworth. You really believe this guy is trying to do the right thing, along with the charisma that he shows. You can definitely tell that there's a lot of his dad in the performance, because his dad is Denzel Washington, and you can really see that in certain things that he says and does throughout the movie. And the fact that Spike Lee has worked with his dad and John David Jr. in the past, again, I think Spike has managed to make the most out of his performance without making him too much like his dad, but those mannerisms are still there. I also really liked Adam Driver in this movie. He has to work together with John David Washington's character to really pull off this, this investigation they're trying to do, because Ron is talking to the Ku Klux Klan over the phone with his, white voice. And obviously someone has to meet them in person, so Adam Driver has to do that side of it, playing the exact same guy. And I thought their chemistry together was really good. Not too strong, but also just, juxtaposing enough that there is a little bit of conflict when it needs to happen. And I really liked that whole aspect of the movie. I also really liked Topher Grace in this movie. I never thought I'd say that about a film, because he really wasn't good in Spider-Man 3, and he really wasn't good in Predators. But here, he's actually really, really good. Again, there's a slight bit of comedy added to his role, in the fact that he is kind of playing a stereotypical white person, per se, like, especially in the way that he pronounces certain things, like, well, top of the morning to you, and, certain things like that. It's just like the stereotypical white American, I suppose, like in the way that he just appears and does things. And I just really liked him in that role, because I just really think it sets off the entire style even, that's just that slight bit more. Also, whilst we're on the topic of the time period, I just love the overall presentation of this movie. It feels very 70s, and it just adds to the style a little bit more, but also adding to the authenticity at the same time. Now, unfortunately, there were a few things about this movie that stopped it from being great, in my opinion. First of all, there is a romance subplot between Ron Stallworth and this girl that he meets that's in charge of a college society. And even though I completely get its relevance in the story, and the two actors are good in that subplot, every time it cuts back to it, it kind of feels like a detraction, and I just kind of want to get back to the main investigation. Again, I get why it has to be there, and again, when it is on screen, the actors are good in those scenes. I just feel like it kind of detracts from everything a little bit and kind of drags ever so slightly. And whilst we're talking about that subplot, there is one scene in particular that, and again, I don't do it this often when watching a movie, but it was kind of noticeable. There's a scene with Ron and this girl on a bridge, and they're talking about famous blaxploitation films of the time, like Shaft and Black Dynamite and things like that. And the way it's shot, I don't have a problem with. It's just they could have... Right, so there's a glaring problem with the scene. It's shot on a bridge, and the time of day that they chose to film it was obviously either early in the morning or I would say late in the afternoon, because there is an awful lot of glare coming off of the railing of the bridge from the sun, enough that it's quite distracting. Well, at least it was for me, and I know I've seen a few reviews out there that have this same problem. It's just quite a noticeable problem, and there are two ways you could have gone around it. Either, one, just film in a different place. It doesn't have to be on a bridge. There's nothing essential to that scene that needs to be filmed on a bridge. You can film that scene anywhere. And the other way around it would just be kind of just removing the glare in post. I mean, that would be very, very hard to do. But, I mean, you're better off going with option A. Just film it in a different place or at a different time of day so that glare is not there. Surely they must have done other takes of that scene where there was no glare. In the end, though, I really did like BlacKkKlansman, and I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was just that right balance of entertaining, humorous fun mixed with really eye-opening and actually quite powerful imagery that really sticks with you. And I think the combination of that pretty much works perfectly to give you this overall package of, yeah, I had a good time watching it, but this shit really needs to be sorted out. So guys, that was my review of BlacKkKlansman. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.